What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Resident Evil Online, this original idea for what eventually becomes RE9, right? And I just want to say, hats off to Dust Golem. Gets a lot of pushback on social media, and he's definitely gotten stuff wrong. He's got the things that are negative, positive, but the guy has been through kind of like a war here with Resident Evil Requiem, still fighting the Leon fight. But, he did say, and he was the only one that talked about that this game started as an online game and it shifted. It got a very heavy reboot at the time that Village came out, right around 2021, but it originated and started right after 7 as an online title, and that's how it was pitched. And then obviously, and that's why it's taken so long. He's gone on record saying that Requiem is like the longest in development Resident Evil game they've ever made. And it's probably because they lost so many years of it not being that. Now, some of that has been like 100% confirmed. So again, the hats off to him. We don't know how long. In fact, the actual quote kind of makes it sound like it was like a weekend project, like they thought about it and they pulled off of it. I mean, again, it's they confirmed it, and he talks about it, I think, being a much longer process. I'm actually going to kind of believe him, in this case. So what are we talking about? Well, yesterday when they did the Capcom showcase, they talked about that, there's that Capcom portal that you sign up for, and you can watch the extended interviews. I don't love that that's the way they set it up, but they did an extended interview with the director of Requiem, and he dropped this kind of bombshell, in that deep cut, so it's kind of funny that they locked it in behind there. But so he said, you might have heard some of the rumors, things like an online Resident Evil or an open world Resident Evil, which we spent some time experimenting with. But in the end, although we had some interesting concepts, we realized that it isn't what fans wanted to see or play, so we went back to the drawing board and created what led to Resident Evil Requiem. Super interesting. I mean, here's the thing. Is an online Resident Evil like the worst idea in the world? I've seen people defend it, like different forums and stuff, people saying, it would be cool to see, or interesting at the very least, to see what a multiplayer. I saw somebody talk about like a multiplayer Last of Us universe and Resident Evil. The thing is, Factions was fine, by the way, with Last of Us. You could have just done that again. I mean, I get it, but I mean, like, we have zombie open world, like MMO type, we have big things already, like high player count games on Steam. The thing is, and this is where I would always stand, right? Like, changing a franchise into something it's not. Now, Resident Evil has definitely experimented, okay? They've experimented with camera angles. They have had multiplayer games, not online, like always online worlds, but they've had multiplayer stuff. So to say it's completely out of the wheelhouse is probably not true, but this was the era, and my opinion on this, by the way, in case you care, is I'm very happy they changed it, and I'd like to believe that it is why it took so long, and that, the thing is, what I'm trying to get to and struggling with, so like Dragon Age, okay? Dragon Age the Veilguard, what we kind of knew about that game, or know now, is for a large part of that development, it was a multiplayer game, right? Which we knew even back then, but we didn't know the severity. We knew that EA said, okay, fine, you don't have to do multiplayer, you can do single player, but it seems like they were only given a year and a half to transform Dragon Age from the multiplayer version to what we got. Now, I don't think what we got was very good, and I think it's probably because you had a year and a half to change it, right? So I guess what I'm getting at with Resident Evil Requiem, I really, everything we've seen, everything we've heard, I don't really even have this in my head, but like when it does come up, this is what I think. I'm cool with it simply because I think it's been enough time. You can have such a weird concept and one that I don't think would have worked, and then you can switch it as long as you had enough time to switch it, right? Like, if you give them a year to switch it, the game's going to, I think, be terrible. If you gave them, 4 or 5 years, but the time that they changed it from multiplayer to single player, easily 4 or 5 years ago, right? Or 4 or 5 at the end of the day, 4 or 5 development years to make the game that we're about to get, which, by the way, is in line. Like, it should take around 4, 5, 6 years to make a AAA video game, and it does, and it seems like it's going to Resident Evil. So that's cool by me, right? It's not even something that's really haunting me, because it's like, all right, any of that kind of like cross-pollination is gone. They kick that right out. If you only gave them 2 or 3 years, you would sense it in that game. I've always said, like, Gotham Knights, which I actually think is a pretty okay game, you can see like the live service, like the DNA. You can literally see, oh, this looks like it belongs in a multiplayer version of this game. Oh, wait, they probably were doing that first and then they changed it. Sometimes you can just see that stuff. And, if it's too much, then it hurts the quality, of the game overall, or it just doesn't give them enough time to switch it, right? Again, could it have worked? I mean, maybe, but it's just, again, this is what we saw with BioWare is just a case study because it's not even just Dragon Age, but Anthem and Mass Effect and all that stuff. But, when you try to change a studio, PlayStation doing it with all their studios, whenever you try to do that, like you're trying to make it something it's not. I think if you were to go full on and you really were to embrace it, but I think what always happens is it's a bad idea and you say, okay, well, we'll try to play it a little bit safe, right? If we make a Resident Evil open world or online game, we're going to make it a little safe so it's a little familiar to the single-player crowd, but also, like, we're not really targeting them, though. We're really targeting this new group. And the end outcome is that you really didn't please either, because definitely the single-player people don't care, and they didn't want you to in the first place. And then you're not embracing it all the way for this new crowd. And by the way, the new crowd, what about the crowd that's been with you for 30 years now, right? So, I mean, these are the things that happens not just in Resident Evil, but everywhere. And I'm very happy that they learned their lesson or whatever. It was the era. The late 2010s, early 2020s. This was, if you're making a game that's not live service, what are you, crazy? It's like you have to do that, and you have to stop what you're doing right now and do it. It can't even wait. So that was the era. Obviously, it's backfired quite significantly. I think we're back on track, and we're definitely back on track with Resident Evil. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.